Max Verstappen sent a fierce threat to McLaren that could shape up the future of the championship, even though the momentum has shifted towards the Woking-based squad in the past couple of months. The three-time world champion is now adamant that the bad times are behind them, and the upgrades they plan for Austin will work precisely as they should, which is information we'll take with a little dose of reserve because of how constantly we're used to it in 2024. Be that as it may, with the first optimistic announcement from Verstappen, should Norris be written off in the championship? And if so, can Verstappen seal it as early as in Austin? At the beginning of 2024, not many of us believed that we could witness a season full of drama after the first 5 races, where Verstappen cruised to easy wins with 20 seconds advantage over the rest of the grid. However, the narrative changed since Miami, and most precisely Imola, when the 3-time world champion felt like there was something wrong with the balance of the car. But the fact that he was highly competitive and won races in Canada and Spain, as well as secured a P2 finish in Silverstone, didn't really put a lot of thought in the engineers' heads regarding the situation of the RB20. But with Spain being the last win of Verstappen, and with Norris being 52 points behind him after Singapore, and having scored the most points in the post-summer break stretch of 4 races, the situation has changed vastly. But Max believes that the worst is behind them, and they're now awaiting some pleasant periods ahead of them. When talking about the car's changes that were applied from Baku, Verstappen said that Red Bull is in a much better place with the car than where it was in the past couple of months, stating, "The car felt a lot better in Baku. That was already a good step for us. I do think we're moving in the right direction now. It will take some time. You can't turn something like this around in 1 or 2 weeks. But I do think the team was happy with what they saw in Baku as well. I do also think that the lowest point of our season is now behind us, to be honest. Hopefully we can continue to make good steps from here." Now, in the past couple of months, we've been used to waiting for Verstappen to give a verdict on the situation and then judge the car's behaviour, because members like Marco and Horner are constantly changing their narrative, and when they promised that the car would behave better, such as in Budapest, that was not really the case. Nevertheless, when Verstappen speaks about the car, whether that's during a free practice session or in a press conference, he always makes sure that the absolute truth and nothing else is shared with the viewers and the fans. But what Verstappen was adamant is that the package they have right now is still not enough to fight for race wins, at least not the one they brought up until Singapore. Scoring P2 there and losing only 10 points in the Baku-Singapore stretch to Norris was a scenario that Verstappen would have signed with both his hands in hindsight. So this is definitely a massive turning point in the championship defence now that more upgrades are coming to the RB20. Still, the Dutchman is optimistically cautious because he understands the nature and the condition in which their current wind tunnel is, a post-war facility built by the British Army that's been put to use in 2005 for Red Bull's cause, and it's definitely no match for the modern high-tech facility that McLaren is using right now. On top of that, Red Bull don't have nearly as much time as McLaren. As a matter of fact, the Woking-based squad has the most amount of time to spend in these facilities from the top 4 teams because of the fact that they finished 4th in the Constructors' Championship last year. So when talking about the importance of the wind tunnel's age, something that Marco stressed out as well, Verstappen said, "The wind tunnel is a very difficult topic to talk about, but it's more complicated to get that right than with the old cars. It's true that we have a fairly old wind tunnel, but until this year, it did everything right. Some things are just hard to understand. You see that with all the other teams as well, except McLaren. All teams have had their own problems, including teams with modern wind tunnels. I think it's just extremely difficult to fine-tune things perfectly or to get exactly the right data out of it. That can be down to a lot of things in the wind tunnel or how it correlates with the track." But what goes in Verstappen's favour is that the remainder of the season has races in which the dominance of McLaren shouldn't be as exaggerated and visible as up until now. And if you consider the fact that Red Bull and Verstappen have won 3 consecutive championships, you would think that they have some aces in their sleeve for the finishing stage of 2024. Of course, they're betting a lot on the new upgrades that are arriving in Austin, which revolve primarily around the new floor of the car as well as the front wing, which will definitely be more flexible than what we had up until now. But McLaren is planning on doing the same, which is why Red Bull cannot really pinpoint their hopes on these 2 parts as being the silver bullet in the fight with their papaya rivals. It's also worth noting that McLaren is aware of the threat and the challenge that Red Bull will present in the fight for the championship, as Norris warned his fans should not relax too much now that the momentum has swung on his team's side. As I mentioned earlier in this video, the 3-time race winner has scored the most points in the 4-race span after the summer break, 80. which is 10 more than his teammate Piastri and 26 more than Verstappen. But still, the Brit is approaching this situation with a lot of caution because he understands the magnitude of having Verstappen and Red Bull behind you and in direct fight with you for the championship. Furthermore, Norris stated, "I wish I could be closer in the championship. We've taken things on the chin, we've moved forward. I was the quickest all weekend and dominated the race. It makes you feel good. It's good motivation for the team. I'm happy, but we need to keep working hard because I'm sure Red Bull will catch up. I want my races to be nice and easy. We're doing well at the minute. I want to keep going. Screw the break. Let's go straight to Austin. The team is doing an amazing job, but we're up against Red Bull. People keep writing them off quickly and too easily. When you're up against Red Bull, you're up against Max. They've dominated the sport for the past several years. They're tough competition. I feel like people relax too much. When you've got Max and Red Bull behind you pushing, they'll do whatever they can." This bodes well with the latest statement of Verstappen, who's now more or less adamant that the championship battle can and will swing in their favour, especially considering the fact that the Austin GP has been resurfaced and the bumpiness shouldn't be as big of an issue as it was in 2023. This was the race in which the three-time world champion commented that the current layout of the track would be more suited for a rally car, not an F1 machinery. But now that the RB20 struggles under those conditions, it's definitely a buff that Verstappen and Red Bull will try to utilise to their absolute maximum as every single point counts. Now, the Constructors' Championship is more or less a lost cause when it comes to P1, as the goal would be to keep up the second seat alive, which will be kind of hard given the fact that Ferrari is breathing down their necks as they're coming with their own package of upgrades in Austin. On top of that, you can always bet on Leclerc and Sainz scoring better points as a duo combined with Verstappen and Perez if the Dutchman is not winning the race. So the goals of Red Bull have shifted massively and they found themselves in a very difficult situation right now. On top of that, we must not underestimate the fact that Red Bull has tons of departing staff, which are led by high-profile engineers like Newey, Wheatley and the Chief of Strategy, Will Courtenay. According to Jos Verstappen, this is all because of the tension that's present in Red Bull, with Horner remaining to be the team principal of the Austrian squad and only gaining more power. But Helmut Marko has disagreed with these claims, stating that it's just a natural process that's waiting to happen sooner rather than later. When talking about it and addressing Jos's worries, Marko said, "Well, I would say the departure of high-profile engineers is a natural development. When you've been as successful as we've been, then people are poached. Courtenay had an offer that was significantly more attractive in terms of position and financially, and that was the case for most of the people mentioned. We've had to stand together and do everything we can to ensure that this World Championship is won this year, and that we also build successful cars for next year and the year after that, because that's the basis for being able to keep Max Verstappen at home." With all this in mind, do you think that Verstappen's comments bring light at the end of the tunnel for Red Bull? And more importantly, do you think that if Red Bull continues with the struggles, then the Dutchman will definitely seek a new home? Likely to be Aston Martin because of the reunion of Newey and Honda at the Silverstone-based squad. Let us know in the comments down below.